Hi there, everybody, and welcome to Web and Beyond Live for May 11th, 2020. I'm Ray Sidney Smith, President of W3 Consulting and Managing Director of W3C Web Services. And so I know we had a little bit of difficulty getting started this morning, so I apologize for the technical difficulties, but as they say, the show goes on. And so we're over here in the new link, and hopefully you have found us. And my agenda for today is actually a bit of miscellaneous news that are, I think, important to everybody kind of paying attention to going forward as small business owners, both today during this COVID-19 pandemic situation, and then some other interesting information that I think is pertinent to you all in terms of what's happening with Google and some cybersecurity stuff. And so I just wanted to share some of those pieces with you all. And so hopefully we will get through this. If you have any questions, feel free to hop in and ask me questions now. I'm here and I've got the question panel open, and so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And then, of course, if you're watching the replay, feel free to leave a comment, and I'm happy to answer questions in the comments as well, or someone else on the team will try and help you out with resources. So first and foremost, I wanted to kind of cover the COVID-19 response and recovery efforts that are kind of being analyzed across the United States specifically, and most recently, PYMNTS, which is PYMNTS, PYMNTS.com. They're a site that does all kinds of analysis in terms of what's going on in the payment industry. And they recently put out a report called Main Street on Lockdown, Reinventing the Road to Recovery. And in it, they surveyed 1,000 small business owners and just kind of was trying to figure out what they're thinking about, how they're responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they came up with some really interesting details here, and I'm surprised, as they were, by some of this. First and foremost, they led with the fact that nearly 70%, quoting here, nearly 70% of small business owners, SMBs, believe they will return to pre-pandemic business models once the crisis is officially declared over, end quote. And so this is somewhat shocking to me because the reality is that as many of us in the greater global society has been affected by this, our behaviors have changed. And there are many other factors, both supply side, the economic, factors of employment, and also the greater, global governance of everything happening. There's just a lot of changes that are coming down the pike, and I feel like maybe these SMBs are not particularly aware of that. And so it's just one of those things where we're seeing a lot of small business owners who are basically thinking this is a temporary issue and this will all be over and we'll go back to, the way things were before this all happened. And I'm kind of betting on the fact that that's not going to be the case. That a lot of business, actually, not maybe 70%, but a lot of business, maybe in the 40 to 50% range, will return back to the way they were before we were in this pandemic. But I think we have a lot more fundamentally, shifted economic, factors that I think people should be aware of. In the research, they also showed that 38.4% of all SMBs have made some changes to their normal operations during this pandemic situation, and that some small percentage of them were going to decide to keep all of those changes, whereas about a quarter of them have made some adjustments that they plan to keep and maintain subsequent to this. That again kind of shocks me. I have to say that if you have had a team like mine where we have gone to a distributed workforce, we're no longer going to return to a centralized office space. We've made that determination. Now that may mean very little to some people, but think about it from the perspective that if I, as a business owner, have decided to keep my staff distributed, and now they are living where they are, that means that a lot of retail districts, a lot of Main Street districts that thrive on that type of foot traffic or regular influx of traffic on a daily basis to support their businesses, their retail businesses, those end up going away. Because if, say, there's a food truck that pulls up on the corner of your street, well, that food truck can now move to a different area. But if you have a restaurant that's sitting stationary and has a lease and infrastructure and employees who are coming to it, and now there are 25, 30% less people trafficking that area, that could be potentially a huge impact on your bottom line. Robin noted this is a shocking stat. I believe business models will shift as well, is what she says. And you're absolutely right, Robin. I think this is going to be a big shock to a lot of people's systems. And when businesses, even if I said 50% of my staff is not going to is going to now work distributed and they're going to be on remote, say 50% of the time, that's still a quarter of my staff on an ongoing basis that will no longer be trafficking those locations. And the more we see that, the more it's not necessarily that business will go away necessarily. It's just that the shift is dramatic, and therefore there are going to be businesses that fail because of that. And those that are not flexible and adaptive in the face of that are really going to hurt. So I just want you, that if you're coming into contact with business owners and you're talking to them, please impress upon them the importance of how this is really going to affect them. A lot of them who depend upon in-store sales in this particular survey, and I'll put a link to this in the video once I'm done. A lot of them who depended upon in-store sales believe they would be able to continue operations that way after the pandemic. And I think the just general retail environment needs to understand the impact of what they're really coming across, and to be mindful of that. In that same line, CNBC put out an article, and I'll put a link to this also for you all to read fully, but they were talking about friendly fraud. And this ends up being when people are penny pinched, they start putting more complaints on their credit cards, and those credit cards then have chargebacks. Those chargebacks go against the merchants and create some downstream backpedaling of your profitability. And we're going to see a huge uptick in this kind of chargeback mechanism, where people are in essence doing friendly fraud. And so we're not only going to see the impact of this in offline sales, we're going to see most of this in online sales, where people are purchasing online and they get delivery of something, and then they decide, I didn't like it, I didn't want it, and they go ahead and call their credit card, or go online to their credit card and say, I didn't order this, and I want you to cancel that order on it. And it's a easy way for people to be able to very lightly commit fraud, in essence, and they don't think of it as that, and therefore they go ahead and put that onus on the credit card networks. And of course, the credit card networks have the ability to put that onus on the merchant. And so you really need to do some things to make sure that you're paying attention to this. But again, this is one of those cases where retail gets impacted by this just as much as online retail. And retail needs to be very, very cautious about this as they're doing more delivery. So if you go to a delivery modality, I think that's moving with the cheese. I think that's appropriate, but there may also be some unintended consequences of then getting tugged by the credit card company when they say, oh, you know what, there's some kind of fraud on this, and so you're going to have to take responsibility for that, especially as the EMV compliance with the chip cards comes into effect as well. That's been phasing in over the last several years, since 2017. And so EMV being Europay, MasterCard, and Visa, they have been putting the onus on fraud for any swiped charges that are not chipped. And that includes when someone types a credit card into a web portal. So you need to do some additional work to make sure that whichever payment gateway you're working with and merchant services providers you're working with, you are working to make sure that you can reduce fraud and overall, create a system where you're not getting this level of chargebacks. There's some, of course, customer service things that you can do. Purposefully go to the customers who have those kinds of issues. If they they submit a claim, make sure you talk talk to them, work that situation out with them directly, and that will hopefully get you less impact than otherwise. But remember that as these changes happen, there are all of these unintended consequences. And that's what I really am worried about here from this COVID-19 report from payments, is that a lot of business owners are not aware of the fact that there are these changes happening and that they can affect them just dramatically. While we're in line with that, there has been an uptick that I've been reading in several different cybersecurity reports about texting scams. And so as a business owner, you are a prime target for texting scams right now. Really, any kinds of scams, phishing scams, where people send emails that are either spear phishing or whale phishing, basically looking for big fish, and you as the small business owner are the big fish because you have all of the keys to the kingdom. You have passwords and you have administrative rights and so on and so forth. So make sure that you are really paying attention right now to emails. Don't click on links. If your email provider provides you with, just as G Suite's email system does, it provides you with a little note that says, hey, this looks a little suspicious, take it to heart. Pick up the phone, get into a video chat and confirm with folks and make sure that your staff knows to do this as well. There's nothing like picking up the phone and talking to you, affirmatively calling you and saying, hey, I just got a notice to pay this invoice. I didn't know it even existed, but it says that we should pay them, $400 for X or Y. Is this really an invoice? And you can say, of course, yes, that's perfectly fine, go for it. Or you can say, you know what, send that along to me, let me look. And then you can say, well, no, absolutely not. This is not a vendor that we've ever worked with. And so just those kinds of things are really important. But the same thing applies with text messages now. So we are getting a lot more SMS and MMS scams that are impacting small business owners. And again, this is like the amount of press that it gets is very limited because it seems low dollar, right? Because say they steal a couple $100 from you here, a couple hundred dollars from you there, and then it happens across many small businesses, and then you see the real volume is actually how they make their money. And so each individual crime doesn't get necessarily reported, but on the whole, it's bloodletting millions of dollars from small businesses every year. And so just be careful about the text messages as they come in. If someone is texting you, make sure that you confirm it in some other secondary or tertiary way that confirms that is actually the person you're doing. And if you get any text messages that you don't recognize, just ignore it. I mean, that's what I do. And I get a lot of text spam. And so, I work very diligently to block them and making sure that I'm not getting as many. But the reality is that it can be very pernicious, because if you click on one of those links or you respond to one of those links, you're opening yourself up to, fraud and all kinds of other more texting spam, because once you respond to them or you click on that link, now they know you're real and alive and they're going to go after you. So don't respond and say stop. Like legitimate texting platforms, if you text stop to it, it will stop. But if these are scams, they're not going to abide by those regulations, and certainly not by the laws. So be very mindful of those things. Switching to a little bit more of a happy note is some updates from Google. As you all know, I'm the Google Small Business Advisor for productivity, and so I'm very much an advocate for using technology to its greatest effect, and Google has some really great products to be able to help you do that. And many of them are free or now are free, like Google Meet. So Google has had Google Meet, which is its enterprise, its business class video meeting technology akin to Skype for Business on Microsoft, or now Microsoft Teams, which now takes over for Skype for Business or will be taking over for Skype for Business over time. And Google Meet is that video conferencing technology. It's secure, it's really easy to use, it works directly in the browser, has mobile applications, and Google has now made it free. So now you can just go ahead and use it for free. You can have up to 250 participants in it. They're giving it away for free until September 30th. And I believe that they're also opening it up to being free for Google users, just generally anyone who wants to use Google Meet. And by forcing everyone to use a Google user account, that is a Gmail account or a G Suite account, or just a Google user account generally, you are reducing the impact of the security issues, because Google can do all kinds of things to protect you there. So I think it's a good step, and it's a step in the right direction. I still use Zoom, love Zoom, even though it seems to have failed me today in terms of live streaming. Not sure why that's the case, but Google Meet is really fantastic for just having quick meetings with folks, and I really do use it every day alongside Zoom, just meeting with staff and having quick conversations. And again, like I said, it just works right in the browser. Very easy, and now you don't need a G Suite account in order to access Google Meet. It's just free and available to you there. Another point, Google Cloud just announced a partnership with Pluralsight and Quick Labs, and they're giving away free 30 days access to learning to their training platform. So Quick Labs and Pluralsight have a training platform, and they're teaching all kinds of technology skills. And so if you're thinking about reskilling or upskilling, many people come to me and they say, you know what, I don't really understand data analytics. I don't understand how to read the dashboards in my Google Analytics or in any of the other website analytics tools. I really don't understand how to run my cloud hosting on Google Cloud and run my WordPress website there. Well, this is it. They have all kinds of really interesting courses. I'm planning on using this technology because I want to learn a little bit more about machine learning. And so I will put a link to this in the video so you'll have access to it. But they're giving you 30 days. You have to, it's no cost, but you have to register before May 31st. Is it May 31st? Yes, before May 31st, and then you get free 30 days access to those platforms for getting those courses. So why not? If we have a little bit extra time while the world is on pause, take advantage of it and do some reskilling and upskilling for that. Just a minor note here that Google has recently unified the team that runs all of its communications and messaging apps. So as you may or may not know, Google has a lot of messaging apps. They've also killed off a lot of messaging apps. But a couple cool things that are happening in and around Google is, recently Facebook, as I talked about a few weeks ago, has launched Facebook Messenger Rooms, which is a group-based video chat functionality. They're kind of trying to compete with the other video meeting technologies that are out there, but also just trying to help out during this pandemic situation. And so Facebook has put theirs out. Google has now put their Google Duo product into the web. So before, you had to have your mobile phone, and you could have a few people, I think it was up to 8 people in Google Duo, and you could do this type of video call. Now you can have up to 16 people in the Google Duo interface, and you can also do it from the web. And so the other day I was going to talk to my mom and my brother and a couple of the other folks, and I was able to just pull that right up on the screen by going to duo.google.com and make the call right there from the website. So that's really, really helpful for being able to just give you a little bit more flexibility with regard to having maybe better camera, a little bit more stationary, not having to hold your phone up to have a phone conversation that may be of a longer period of time. And your customers may just be in those spaces. But the point is that Google's providing a little bit more structure here so that people are communicating in the same space. And I like that. I like the idea of Google hopefully unifying their messaging strategy so that people across ecosystems can have just better communications. In line with that, Google recently announced that they were working with Samsung to bring RCS, which is their real-time communication system, to or service, I forget what the S stands for, system or service, for being able to use sort of like if you have ever used WhatsApp or Telegram or other types of tools, you can see the little message bubble, people are typing back and forth to you, sending emoji and stickers and so on and so forth to each other. That level of synchronized communication is what RCS is. Apple has their own proprietary system, and Google has now created their own system as well. And now they are trying to get other telecommunications providers to adopt that platform. So we're going to see more and more of that come to pass, and Google unifying their messaging and communication apps into one space. Google Meet, Google Duo, Messages, Android's phone app, Google Chat, all of those pieces under the same umbrella, I think bodes well for us having a little bit more continuity of the platform and how it all operates. Okay, one more item And then we're going to close out, which is just a little productivity thing, which is that Google has recently added functionality to Google Lens. So if you don't know what Google Lens is, it is actually a part of the Google app if you're on iOS. It's its own separate app on Android, and it's also caked into the camera application if you're using the Google camera on any Android platform. So when you open up that default camera, you will see a little, it looks like a little aperture, a little front end of a camera again. I'm opening it up here just so I can describe it properly. But when you hover over things, you have the option, when you go to more, you have the option for Lens. And Lens is in essence a search. It's part of search. So it's a part of the search engine, and you can translate things. So you can just hover it over, and if it's in, say, Chinese, you can hover the camera over it. It'll automatically translate it into your native language. So in this case, English, or you can hold it up. If it's in Spanish, you can translate it to French, and all those kinds of things. You can search products. And so you can hold it up and you can, hover it over a particular product. It can scan the product and then pull up a Google search based on that. You can hold it up to a Monet and it'll identify the Monet and show it to you and give you more information. Well, one of the things that it just added is the ability for it to look at handwritten notes, handwritten text, and lift the text out as typed text. So now you can actually, as I am frequent to do, I'm reading, and now I can, say, okay, well, this is a paragraph that's really interesting to me for me to use as a quotation in a blog post or to talk about in some other place. Hover Google Lens over it. It will snap an image of the text, and then you can literally pull the typed text out of that image. And so that technology is just great to have at your fingertips. You don't need a separate application anymore, and it's just available to you. There was a lightweight version of that was available in Google Keep up until now, and it's still there. But you have to take a picture of the thing. It pulls it into the Google Keep note, and you can then extract the text and so on and so forth. But the function of bringing it directly into Google Lens and giving it to us within that ability, within that app, is just fantastic. So I'm just happy to be able to have Google Lens in there. If you're an Android user, it's probably a little bit easier for you than if you're on iOS, but just know that it's there and it's available to you, and I'm happy to have it myself. So with that, I think I am done. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. As I said, there's the live chat. Once I close out the live chat, there in the comments, you're always happy to leave a comment, and I'll try to answer your questions or lead you into the resources that can help you do that. So either way, I'm Ray Sidney Smith with W3 Consulting and W3C Web Services, where we provide affordable WordPress hosting and domain registration services and all that fun stuff for small business owners. And I hope to see you next week here on Web and Beyond Live. Hopefully we will get the technology issues resolved so that we can go live as normal on time. And yeah, here's to your marketing on the Web and Beyond this week, and see you next time.